Hi, welcome back to the ADHD Content Creator Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer, aka Vegan Tech Nomad. And today I'm so excited to be joined by our guest, Brock Johnson, who's an Instagram growth coach. I met Brock at this event in LA, and he told me I asked really good questions and should start a podcast. So now here we are. Brock, do you want to do an intro of yourself and what you do?
Sure, yeah. So, as you said, I'm an Instagram growth coach. That's kind of a made-up title for myself. Basically, what I do is I help small business owners and content creators grow primarily on Instagram, but I also dabble in all the other platforms as well. But primarily, I help people grow on Instagram and then learn how to monetize that following, whether it's creating digital products, selling physical products, or just monetizing their audience through other means. That's really what I do, and that's what I geek out on pretty much all day.
Yeah, it feels so surreal for me right now because I followed you from like years back before I even did social media for my company's account or my account. And even though you say you're an Instagram coach, I used your tips for TikTok as well. And we went viral there, and it's so surreal right now.
That's awesome. It's great to hear.
Yeah, so you've coached thousands of students. Do you have an exact number?
I don't have an exact number. I know we've had more than 45,000 people go through our Insta Club Hub now. At any given point in time, we have about 6,000 active members in the club. And then back in the day, I used to do a lot of one-on-one coaching. Now I don't do it so much, but one-on-one wise, I think I've worked with probably over 500 or 600 individuals with one-on-one coaching.
Okay, when you say the club, can you explain what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So the club is the Insta Club Hub. That is essentially our Insta. There's not really a single word that describes these things. I wish there was. It's a membership. So there is an element of it that is like a course where it's self-guided. You're watching pre-recorded lessons. There's an element of it that is a community where there's Q&A and there's chat forums and there's accountability partners and discussion boards. There's a part of it that is group coaching where we have small group coaching calls. There's a part of it where we have monthly live webinars. There's a part of it where we offer a 30-day content calendar that's personalized to you and your niche and your specific account. And we send each of our members that calendar every single month. So there's a lot, and it's definitely grown over time. We launched it in 2020. But basically, that is the primary way that I am able to teach and instruct and help so many content creators and business owners with still only having 24 hours in the day.
So it's been like 5 years since 2020. So you've been doing this for more than 5 years. And
yeah, exactly. So we launched the Insta Club Hub in November of 2020, but I started my Instagram coaching back in 2018, I believe.
So you've probably met up or coached or helped a lot of content creators out there. And I'm curious, do you have any mindset mistakes you see them make? Because I see a lot of people say like, oh, it's the algorithm, I'm getting shadow banned, versus other people who just focus on what they can control. So what are some of those mindset mistakes you notice a lot?
Yeah, I remember you asked me about this when we first met, and I thought this was such a good question, such an insightful question to be asking about, because, if I was to make a post on Instagram that was the 7 mindset mistakes that are stopping you from growing, no one would engage with it. No one would interact with it. But the reality is the difference between the accounts that have success, the people who grow their businesses or their brands on Instagram, and those who don't, is usually the mindset, because the strategies are largely the same. And sure, things might change from time to time. Sure, some people might get lucky and have a video go viral. Sure, some things are just more likely to gain attention and eyeballs and followers than others. But at the end of the day, there are certain mindset shifts that if you can make those changes for yourself, you're going to have success, regardless of what niche or industry or even what platform you choose. So some of those things are, number one, being adaptable. I think being adaptable also, you could synonymously call it being coachable, right? Being able to make changes as the algorithm changes, being able to adjust your content to fit within, what are people interested in right now? What is the dominant kind of post or video or style? What are people looking for? And then also just being adaptable from post to post of, can I learn something new? Speaking of, that kind of leads me into another mindset that people need to have, which is detaching from the result. So Instagram and social media in general, by its nature, can feel very results driven. It's about how many followers did you gain? How many views did you get? How much engagement did you receive? But really, at the end of the day, you have to be able to recognize that each post is not a reflection of who you are to your core. It is not a piece of art that is finished and finalized. It is, and this is how I believe people should view each post, a data point. It's a learning lesson. It's an example of, did this post do well? Did this post not do well? And then you can learn small tidbits from each post. And if you learn even just one thing from each post, by the time you make your 20th post, night and day difference. By the time you make your 100th post, you're a whole new content creator. By the time you make your 300th post, you have a big audience and you're going viral and you're making great content, but it took 300 of those learning lessons to get there. But I think if you are so attached to the results and the outcomes of each and every single post, you're going to get bogged down in the nitty gritty, and it's going to be really tough to actually learn from those posts because your ego is going to be so deflated every time you don't get a lot of engagement. And then the final thing that I will say in terms of mindset on Instagram is that you have to be able to find joy in the process. And now that doesn't mean that every single part of Instagram is enjoyable, but there should be some part of the process that you actually thoroughly enjoy, that you actually get excited about. One of my mentors, Pat Flynn, I heard him say, pick a platform that you would be excited about, even if you didn't get results, even if for years you just flopped and failed and all your posts did bad, but you're excited about the prospect of recording the podcast. You're excited about the prospect of creating a reel or making a YouTube video or typing up a blog post. You're just excited and interested about that part of the creation. If you can find joy in some part of the Instagram process, you're going to have results eventually and definitely. Not immediately, but eventually and definitely.
You shared a lot of good tips there, but you also said some really interesting things. And one of them I noticed was looking at the analytics, like detaching yourself from the results, but you have to study the analytics. A lot of people don't look at it and don't learn from their posts. Sometimes because they attach their self-worth to the numbers, but also because they don't know what to look for. So is there a specific thing that you would recommend people look for if that's like the only thing they look optimized for that metric?
Yeah, I would say that there's a few different things, and it's going to slightly vary depending on what stage you're at or what your goals are. If you are, let's say, in the early stages, you're trying to increase visibility, grow an audience, you don't have any followers yet, you're just getting started, your views are relatively low, I would focus primarily on creating share-worthy content. And thus, of course, the metric I would focus on is how many shares are you receiving? And over time, hopefully, you're able to see certain posts receive more shares than others, and you can continue to refine that style of post, double down on maybe that message or that idea or that style of content in order to generate more shares in the future. And then, of course, there are other examples of as well, whereas if you're just getting started, and you're like, Brock, I've only made 4 posts and only one of them even has 1 share. Okay, well, success leaves clues and success is out there from other people. So go look at other people who are, doing something similar to what you're doing. They're in a related industry, and notice what posts of theirs are generating the most shares. Notice what posts of theirs are getting passed around and sent from person to person and going viral. And that will help you just get an idea as to, hey, in my industry, in my space, what are people really willing to send to one another? So that's one form of engagement that I would pay close attention to. Another form of engagement that I think is really important that we pay attention to is a new one that Instagram recently added. It's a new stat. When you're viewing your reel, if you tap View Insights, there's a little statistic that's now kind of down towards the bottom, and it's called View Rate Past First 3 Seconds. It's like the longest name ever for a stat. But basically, this stat is telling you what percentage of your viewers were still watching after the 3-second mark. To say that another way, what it's essentially telling us is, was your hook good or was your hook not very hooky? Was it not very strong? Did it not really grab people's attention? And so I'm a big fan of just looking at that statistic and, hey, if on average 35% of my viewers are watching after the first 3 seconds, but on this reel, the average dropped down to 22%. Okay, well then this hook must have sucked. There was something that was making even the person who on average would keep watching stop watching. And so maybe I could rework that hook. Maybe there was something distracting in the video. Maybe there's a sound effect, something that I added or something that I shouldn't have added in the first place. Or the opposite can also be true. I can look at that stat and say, hey, normally 35% of my viewers are watching after 3 seconds, but on this post, it was like 48%. Okay, awesome. What was it that kept people watching? And then can I learn from that and apply it to a future post?
Let's say there was a video that did very well for the hook, or like it didn't do well for the hook, but you really believe in the concept of of the video. So would you then like repost the same video, but then just change the hook?
100%. 100%. There's this silly thing that us marketers do, which is give fancy names and titles for strategies. And so I will call this my hook swap strategy. But essentially, yeah, it's what you just described. If you have a great video that you're proud of, or the video is good, you know it's good, but just the hook didn't perform well, swap out the hook. Just literally edit out that first scene or that first few seconds and replace it with a new version and leave the rest of the video the same and post a second time. Just wait a few weeks so you're not posting them on like back-to-back days, but wait a few weeks and go ahead, post that thing again, and maybe it'll perform better the second time.
I feel like that gives a lot of people permission to just like do their own thing, because people are like, oh, you can't post the same video, but it's like it's your own account. You can do what you want.
100%. 100%. Yeah, you can do what you want on your own account. And I think a lot of people are scared because there was this Instagram news in 2024 that they were cracking down on repost accounts that go viral just because they're reposting viral clips from other accounts. And a lot of people were like, oh, so should I not repost my own? No, you're free to repost your own. Instagram created this new kind of crackdown as a way to reward the original poster. Newsflash, you are the original poster. So yeah, absolutely. Repost your own stuff, recreate, edit your own stuff, and post it a second time for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. But then what if you really like your post? Like what you said, sometimes you have this insight that you know can help a lot of people, but you know it's not going to get engagement and no one's going to watch past the first 3 seconds. So how do you balance that, what you know can help others versus what's going to get engagement?
Ultimately, if you create a post that you know is going to be helpful for people, but either you post it and you get these results, or you just know ahead of time the results are going to be non-existent, then ultimately, is it really helping anyone? Like, yes, it's valuable, but it's not valuable if no one's consuming it. Like if I made the world's best vitamin that cures all diseases and prevents all future illnesses, that's only valuable if I can actually get people to consume it. If they aren't consuming it, it's worthless. It might as well just be a placebo effect pill. And so at the end of the day, I think if you do have those ideas, like myself with the mindset tips, you can try to get creative and see if there's a way that you can formulate it. Maybe there's a way that you can work it into a story. Maybe there's a way that you can do what's called the chocolate covered carrot, which is where you hang a chocolate covered carrot in front of someone and they see the chocolate, so they want the chocolate, so they bite into it, they start consuming the content, only to find out that it wasn't what they thought they wanted, it was what they actually needed on the inside. So maybe there's a way you could, package your, for my own example, mindset tips for Instagram. I could package that in a way that's something that people really want, which what most people really want on Instagram, what they say they want is followers and views and going viral. So maybe there's a creative way that you can hide your important message within something that's a little bit more shiny on the outside, or you can accept that maybe that great tip, that great idea is going to be shared in another medium. So kind of like we're talking about today, I wouldn't probably make an Instagram post about 7 mindset tips, but I might talk about it on a podcast where people are looking for a more insightful answer. They're looking for maybe a little bit more long-winded answer. Or maybe I'm going to put that inside of a course where someone's going to buy the course and they're buying the course because they want to learn how to grow on Instagram. Once they've bought the course, they're quite literally invested. And now that they're invested, I can say, listen, I know you want to grow on Instagram, but in order to get followers, we first have to get our mindset right. And then maybe I can walk them through those mindset tips. But I can only do that because they've already bought the course, they've already paid. And so they've got skin in the game in order to want to consume that video. So it's just about getting creative or using other mediums to share that content.
So what I'm hearing, it's like you really need to understand your ideal target audience and then kind of meet them where they're at. if they don't understand mindset is important, then you don't present it that way at first.
1,000%. Like, that's something I always talk to people about, and you are so spot on with that analysis. You have to be so deeply empathetic for your ideal target market audience, whatever you want to call them. And that's a skill that's developed over time. But knowing who that person is really step one. Once you know who they are, then you can get to know them hypothetically, or maybe you can actually get to know that person if it is a real world person who you can think of, and really understand their challenges, their pain points, and their struggles. Because a mistake that I think a lot of people make is they don't do what you just said, Jennifer. They don't meet people where the person is. They try to have people come to where they are. And where we are as people with experience, with people with a little bit more knowledge, we're like, hey, I'm here. I know the answer. Why is no one coming to me? Because they're asking the different questions. You need to go figure out the question they're asking. You need to go figure out the pain point, not that you know that they have, not the thing that you know they're struggling with, the thing that they think they're struggling with. And once you meet them there, then you're able to solve their problems for them. And that's really what entrepreneurship is. It's just paid problem solving.
That leads me to another concern I hear a lot of beginner creators make or have, which is they don't know who that target audience is because they don't know their niche. They don't want to pick a niche. They have too many passions. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you can grow. There's a million different ways to grow. You can grow on Instagram without picking a niche. However, it's going to be much tougher to do so because I don't know about you, Jennifer. Last time I checked, when I'm scrolling through Instagram, if I see a great post from someone and I go and click on their profile and I see 70 other posts that are just like that one great post, I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to follow this person. If I see a great post and I click on their profile and I see 50 million different posts about all these different topics, their date night outfit, funny video of their dog, some nice selfies, a photo dump from their vacation, I'm like, okay, that was one great post, but I'm probably not sticking around. I'm probably not going to follow this person for more. And so identifying your niche is really step one. It's foundational for growth on social media. What I will tell people, though, is that number one, you don't have to deny all those other parts of who you are. There are creative ways to work your interests, passions, and hobbies, your shiny object syndrome, and all those other things that you love. There are ways to work those into your content creatively. I'll give you one example. I'm never going to post a video of myself snowboarding to my Instagram feed. My followers don't follow me for my snowboarding videos. I'm some amateur snowboarder. It's not like I'm even like a pro or nothing. I'm just some amateur kid who loves snowboarding. I'm never going to post that to my feed. But I have posted videos where I'm sitting on the chairlift recording a reel. I posted reels where maybe I'm snowboarding in the video and it relates somehow to growing on Instagram. Maybe I'm illustrating a point or telling a story, but the point of the reel itself is not snowboarding. So that's the first thing I'll say is there are creative ways to work it into your feed. Now, stories are a different story. Stories, you can let your freak flag fly. Stories are where you can post about anything and everything. You can post about all your different interests and passions and hobbies. And so that can be a way for a lot of people to say, okay, I will niche down on my feed. My feed will be focused on just one singular topic for one singular group. But then on my stories, that's where I'll kind of bring it all in. I'll kind of talk about all my different little things that I love to do. And then ultimately, the final thing that I'll say in regards to niche is two things kind of. Number one, just pick something. Yes, there are some that are like better or worse, but at the end of the day, there's not a right or a wrong niche. The only wrong niche is not picking a niche at all. So just pick something. I don't care what it is. Just pick something and then you can always change it. That was the second thing I wanted to say is you can always change, you can always pivot, you can always rebrand, but you have to get started in order to be able to change in the future.
Okay. Speaking of changing your account, because for your niche, it's easily reversible. So if you end up picking one, you can change it. But what about making a separate account? Because I know you have a few different ones in different niches. Why make a separate account instead of changing your existing account?
The challenge is, let's say I'll take myself for an example. You know, I've got however many 700,000 followers and they all follow me for Instagram growth tips. If I all of a sudden decided, you know, I'm not going to do Instagram growth tips anymore. I'm going to do beginner rock climbing advice. I know nothing about rock climbing, but hypothetically, beginner rock climbing advice. Well, guess what? Probably 99% of my followers are going to A, unfollow, or B, the more likely option, they're still going to follow me, but they're going to be super uninterested, super disengaged, super like, what is going on here? This is not what I signed up for. The 1% who does stay interested in my content is going to be my family, the people who happen to be beginner rock climbers and want to know how to grow on Instagram, and then those rare few super fans, loyal followers who will follow you anywhere. So I usually say if you're going to change your niche, and it's going to be like a drastic change like the one I just described, it's usually best to start a new account unless you have a new account to begin with. Like if you just started 2 months ago and you've got 200 followers, then sure, stick around with this current account. But if you've got more than a couple thousand, if you've been doing this for more than a couple years, it's probably going to be beneficial to start a new account.
So basically, if somebody already has grown a following who follows them for a specific topic, it's probably better to start a new account and start from scratch.
Yeah.
And then what about the successful creators? What's the most common factor that you've seen in all of them? And by success, I'm not just defining it in terms of like monetary and business success, but like work-life balance, how you're able to just go snowboarding in the middle of a random Tuesday and it's not crowded.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that tomorrow. I moved a few meetings around because we're getting some snow in, and tomorrow's going to be a good snowboarding day. But anyways, the things that I think are common traits amongst these quote unquote successful. And I love the way you define success. It's not just monetary income or followers. That's not how I define success either. I define success as being able to live the life that you want to live on your own terms. And so I think that the creators who have achieved that, number one, they have unwavering consistency. I'm not talking months. I'm not talking even years. I'm talking over the course of multiple decades showing up consistently. And that doesn't necessarily always mean posting every day, but they're constantly improving their skills, refining their tasks, showing up for their audience or their community. I think that's definitely part of it. I think part of it as well is having a very clear why, or some people might call this boundaries or like, the motivating factor. But for me, I have a very clear on-off switch for work, for things like this podcast interview, for things like meetings and work-related tasks. And I know that at the end of the day, my end goal is not to become a gajillionaire or to build a Fortune 500 company. My end goal is to be a great husband, be a great son, be a great brother, be a great friend, enjoy the fruits of my labor. I don't understand this craze of entrepreneurship where it's like hustle culture and, sleepless nights and just be addicted to your work. Listen, that's for some people. That's not for me. For me, it's like, okay, I want to work hard. I want to produce results. I want to help people, but I want to do that so that I can enjoy the fruits of my labor, so that I can go for a walk with my wife, so that I can turn off at 5 p.m. and not have to turn back on, not have to crank open my laptop at 10 o'clock and work for a few hours. I can actually shut it, walk out of my office and be present for dinner and be present for watching Netflix before we go to sleep. And those little things, those really matter to me. Those are my priorities. Those are important to me. And I think just having those defined, having those very clear from the get-go helps creators find success at the different stages of their journey.
That's really insightful because I feel like a lot of people picture you because you're so big, you've been on the news, you're this Instagram growth coach. I could not picture you watching Netflix because I was like, this guy must be grinding, always working, he works so hard. But it's like, no, you know your priorities. You don't wait for success to be happy, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. That's first of all, I really, really appreciate that. But no, that's very much who I am. Like last night, I did a little bit of work in the middle of the day, and yes, it was a Sunday, but I also spent 4 hours snowboarding in the morning. I got home, I did work for like an hour or two, and it was just a little bit of work, scheduling some content, reviewing what my week ahead looked like. And then I spent a few hours playing Pokemon Go with my wife. And then we spent a few hours watching the Great British Bake Off on Netflix. And then I read a couple chapters of Harry Potter and went to sleep. Like, I think it's important for people to understand what success looks like for different people. And for me, that's what success looks like. For me, the life that I'm able to live right now is what I consider a success. And I think it's important for everyone listening to create their own definition for success and then kind of, put the blinders on and not get distracted by all of the outside noise, which admittedly, it's tough. It's not easy. Even myself, sometimes I feel falling victim to the comparison game and maybe I should work a little harder. Maybe I should work a little longer. Maybe I should X, Y, and Z because I'm watching social media and comparing myself to others. But as long as you start out with knowing your why, knowing your boundaries, knowing your priorities, you're going to have, a much better chance of reaching your definition of success.
That's a good point. But I just know there's going to be some people listening who are like, that's nice, but that's not for me. I'm too busy. I have like 3 jobs. I have school. But I feel like at that point, it's not a busy problem. It's a prioritization problem. Half the things that you're doing might not even be what you need to do. So what would you say is the highest ROI task for somebody who's super busy, packed schedule, they want to spend time with their loved ones, but they also want to pursue this content thing full time and be successful?
This is a great question. And first, I want to say, I also think that there are seasons of life and business. There was definitely seasons of my own life where I wasn't snowboarding 50 days a year, where I was hustling a little bit harder. And there are definitely going to be seasons where you're kind of embracing the suck and embracing the, hey, things are not going great right now, but I'm just going to keep working through it. There were periods where I was one-on-one coaching literally from 9 to 5. I created my own 9 to 5 job that was just one-on-one call after one-on-one call. It was like peak lockdown, and I was just sitting, in my office all day taking these calls and these meetings. And so there's definitely going to be seasons like that. But if I was to define one singular ROI producing activity that has the most ROI for someone who wants to monetize their content creation, I think the first one that comes to mind is delegation. I know we talked about this when we met in person, but I truly believe that the ability to outsource, ask for help, hire help, and that comes in many different forms. I think that that is one skill or one activity that I would get really good at, especially if you're someone who doesn't have time. Okay, well then figure out what things are taking up your time that can be outsourced, that can be delegated, that can be passed off to someone else. And in the free time that you do have, what are some areas, some things that could be, again, outsourced, delegated, passed off to help you when you do have that free time, when you do have that 30-minute block or that 1 hour early in the morning, you're able to just lock in, focus, and really get into your zone of mastery, which is the final thing that I'll say is part of the difficulty in answering this question is we all have different zones of genius or zones of mastery where, some people are really, really great storytellers, but they're not great at editing. So maybe they're going to record a bunch of storytelling content and then they're going to hire an editor to actually put it together. Maybe you're a really great copywriter, but you're really bad on camera. Okay, well then maybe you're going to outsource and hire a content creator to actually film the content for you, but you're going to script all the content. You're going to be the person who's actually writing what they're saying. And so figuring out what you are great at, and then creating scenarios where you can just do that and do as little of everything else as possible. I think that's really how you can scale and stand out and win on social media.
So it's kind of sounding like to really stay consistent and grow, you need to have a strong concept of self and really understand what you are and aren't good at, really understand your boundaries and your needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's pretty good because all of this is like soft skills. Everything out there, people are like, I just don't have the technical skills. I don't know what tools to use, but like that doesn't matter as much as the soft skills is what I'm hearing.
1000%. I could not agree more. Yeah.
So let's say somebody is trying to go on Instagram or any social media platform and they have been posting for years consistently, but they fail to grow. So in that case, where would you say they went wrong?
I think probably the algorithm just hates them, and I don't know, maybe they made Mark Zuckerberg mad. No, I think if you've been creating content for years and you haven't grown, first and foremost, take a really long, hard look in the mirror because there are likely things that you could have been improving with your content that you haven't. I think there are plenty of people who create content for years and they are improving their content. And that's not necessarily who I'm talking to right now. I'm talking to the people who they've kind of been halfway doing it for years and they know who they are when they're listening. They know themselves. They know if they've kind of been halfway doing it, in with one foot, out with the other, not taking it too seriously. They have periods of consistency and periods of inconsistency. They have periods where they care and they're excited and periods where they don't. Take a harsh look in the mirror and really decide, like, is this something that I've truly been taking seriously for years? Or is it something that I've just kind of been mailing it in? Have you really been going to the gym every single day for 2 hours for the last 3 years? Or have you been going to the gym, like once or twice a week when you feel good, you're working out for 20, 30 minutes, spending half the time walking on the treadmill, staring at your phone, take that harsh look in the mirror, and then really analyze, like, are there things in my content that other people are doing that I'm not? Are there things that other people are having a lot of success with and I haven't tried that? And then at the end of the day, the final thing that I'll say is just stick with it. Stick with it. If you truly feel like you've been improving your content, you've been, putting in the work, you've been taking it seriously, you haven't been half-assing it, stick with it. Stick with it, because in reality, while growth often looks like it's overnight and it often looks like it's, just in the moment and instantaneous, it's usually that kind of growth is usually the result of like 5 years of work that no one remembers. And before those 5 years of work that no one remembers, it's usually like 5 to 10 to 15 years of work that no one even saw. Like, I've been growing on Instagram with this crazy growth rate and all these followers for like 5 years, since 2021, really. So 4 years now. But no one remembers or saw the 3, 4, 5 years before that, where I was an Instagram growth coach and I was gaining a couple hundred followers a year, maybe. And it was really tough sledding and it was really hard work and I wasn't seeing crazy results. And no one even knows about the decade of work before that period where I was creating content, where I was making YouTube videos, where I was podcasting, where I was refining the skills and the things that I still use today, but no one ever saw it. It's that lonely work. It's that work that no one knows you're doing, that you do for decades, that ultimately result in the overnight growth that everyone seems to be chasing.
I really resonate with that because people look at my account and they're like, oh, she went viral a few times. But then I followed your account, Brock, and started learning all these Instagram tips when I was just doom scrolling. So I wasn't taking action, but I was still learning. And a few years after, I implemented it. And a few years after, I went viral overnight.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, you also mentioned doing a lot of different things in the background and none of them really amounting to, like, they got you new skills, but maybe they didn't lead to that supercharged growth like you were doing podcasting, refining your skills. And I think that's what a lot of my audience struggles with, with ADHD, shiny object syndrome. They're starting a podcast, they're also starting a blog, they're starting an Instagram account, but then none of those projects are like finished. You don't go all in on any. It's just like, a little bit here and then you give up and you do something else. Is that kind of your experience too until you went all in on Instagram?
In a way, yes. I think I haven't been diagnosed with ADHD. I've actually been told that I don't have ADHD. I think I have one of my superpowers, I believe, is the ability to underthink things where I don't hyper focus. I don't necessarily bounce around. I'm able to really lock in and focus on things without the shiny object syndrome or without overthinking or overanalyzing. But I definitely think that there were periods for myself where looking back, I was like, wow, that was that activity, that course, that product, that idea that I chased was really never going to work. It really had no ROI opportunity. Like, it wasn't an idea that works for most and it failed for me. No, like, it's an idea that's not going to work for anyone. I'm definitely not going to try that again. But I think that's part of it too. I think that's part of entrepreneurship is a little bit of trial and error and figuring out, hey, I had this great idea. Let's try it and see if it works. I am going to steal this idea that Pat Flynn shares in his new book that comes out June 3rd. The book is called Lean Learning. And for anyone with ADHD, I think that this book is going to be super helpful. And I just learned this today. I was talking to him. But basically, it's his version of the 80-20 rule. He spends 80% of his time on one thing, the thing that he has to focus on, the thing that he says yes to. For me, that would be like Instagram growth tips or growing the Insta Club Hub. That would be like my one thing. And then he spends 20% of his time. So for him, he spends Monday through Thursday as his 80%, and he spends 20% of the time, he spends his Friday on what he calls the itch rule, scratching that itch, scratching the shiny object syndrome itch, and allowing himself to play and experiment and try something new. And I just think this principle is very helpful because then you're able to do the things that you have to do, the thing you committed to doing, the things that are going to provide the ROI, but you still get to scratch that itch. You still get to experiment. You still get to, hey, I had this random idea. I'm going to spend an entire day. I'm going to spend my whole Friday just focus on this one crazy new idea that I had. And then hopefully, as he calls it, the itch rule, hopefully it scratches that itch.
That's a kind of life-changing concept. I might steal that and try it for myself.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I feel like the main thing that kills dreams, like of being a content creator is not lack of skills. It's the lack of consistency from not going all in, not locking in, not believing in yourself and sticking with it for you guys. So what is the role? This is going to be my last question, but what is the role of community in all of this? Like feedback, accountability, because that's kind of what Insta Club Hub is for, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a huge part of what the Insta Club Hub is for. That's the club part of the Insta Club Hub. But I think community is essential kind of in two different capacities. One capacity is the community that we rarely talk about when it comes to social media marketing, which is your real life community, like your support community, your friends, your loved ones, your family. And admittedly, when I was first starting this journey, I remember my friends in college at the time, it was a lot of teasing. It wasn't like bullying or anything like that, but it was a lot of teasing and making fun of and not supporting and not, oh man, that's cool. That's awesome. Tell me more. It was, oh, is that what you're doing now? You know, that sort of thing. And so being intentional about surrounding yourself with people who do cheer you on, who do lift you up. I know a lot of people are really scared when they're first getting started in social media and online entrepreneurship because they're like, I'm so scared what my family and my friends will think. Well, unfortunately, you can't really get rid of your family unless you're going to cut them off for not following you on Instagram. You can't really change your family, but you can change your friends. And at the end of the day, if you have a friend who's constantly bad mouthing or teasing or not supporting you, is that really that great of a friend? Is that really a friend you want to stick around? And so I was really fortunate that I transferred schools. And so I literally had a new group of friends right after I started this business. And my new group of friends was super supportive, super encouraging, asking me about my podcast, my business, and my social media. But your in-person community and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you and encourage you and remind you of the good you're doing, remind you of your purpose. I think that is essential. They can also hold you accountable, right? So that in-person community is huge. And then the virtual community is really everything. I really feel like the future of social media is going to be these small, niche, micro communities who have shared interests and obsess over the same things. And those are the communities that are going to be, from a business perspective, the most fortuitous. Like those are going to be the groups, the communities of people who are going to lead to the biggest business success and the most sales and the most revenue, because it's not 100,000 people who are just kind of lukewarm interested. It's 100 people who are super fans. It's 1,000 people who are absolutely obsessed with this topic. And then, of course, over time, those communities can grow. But fostering those communities ultimately comes down to one person at a time, making sure that each and every individual in your community feels valued, seen, heard, and appreciated. I often tell people when they say, oh, Brock, I have a small following. It sucks. I wish I had more followers and I wish I went viral. I always say a small following is a superpower. If you have 320 followers, I hope you know them all by name. I hope you direct message them all the time, not trying to sell to them, but just genuinely caring about their lives, like genuinely taking an interest. And when you do that with 300 followers, by the time you have 1,000 followers, you're not going to have to take care of all 1,000 people because some of those 1,000 will be taken care of by the initial 300. And by the time you hit 100,000 followers, you won't have to personally message all 100,000 people because you have done such a good job of curating that community and building a true place of love and care that your followers are going to take care of each other. And that's what a community is. It's a dialogue. It's not a monologue. It's all of these people interconnected, not just one person leading with a bunch of followers.
That's such a good way to think about it, because I got a DM once from somebody who followed me, and we ended up meeting up in Toronto, and she worked for Stan's store, and then she invited me to the Collab Fest event, and then and now we're doing this podcast.
Full circle. I love that.
And she's in my course now too. Like she purchased one of my products, and I didn't expect her to do that. It was so nice.
That's amazing. That's such a cool story.
Yeah, so I think that's a good note to close this off. And I just want to thank you for being here, Brock. I'll leave your links in the show notes. It'll be Brock 11 Johnson on Instagram. I believe you're on like all these other random social media platforms as well, but Instagram's your main one. And I also link Insta Club Hub. So thank you so much, Brock. Do you have any last words of wisdom before we end this off?
Yeah, no, I totally appreciate you. And like I said, when we first got on, when we were still off air, I just think it's so awesome. And I'm so proud of the fact that, we met basically like a week ago. And I was like, hey, you ask such good questions. You should have a podcast. Start a podcast. Invite me. I'll be one of your guests. And now here we are. And I think that's such a great example of not overthinking it, but starting messy, starting sloppy, but just starting. Not that this podcast is messy or sloppy, but that's my advice for everyone listening is there's plenty of great information, education, trainings, tutorials, podcasts, YouTubes out there that you could watch and learn from all day, 24/7, 365. At the end of the day, you got to just take action. Start sloppy, start messy, start imperfectly, but just get started.
Yeah. One of my friends told me that the formula for power or something is when you think something and it becomes reality. So like the distance between thought and action, as long as it's like tiny and you take action right away, you can learn so much from that. And it's just like you feel magical and powerful because what you
I love that.
became action.
That's so cool.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on, and I will see everyone in the next episode.